Hello! So Pride Month continues, and for my second video of the month I would like to talk about queer books I like, basically. So it's sort of a, I say queer books, I mean books with queer characters in, because I am going to be talking about books that have queer side characters rather than queer main characters, but I don't necessarily think that I want to limit myself to only using books with queer main characters, because I think sometimes the best queer characters are the side characters. And like, I know that sounds really pants because it's like, I want to be the main character. And I do get that. But also I'm like, I'm just in it for queer characters, really. I don't know if it's because I'm used to having to kind of seek out queerness that isn't really there, or whether it's just because I think there is often as much value in a side character as there is in a main character, and I don't know whether that's very author of me or whether, like, you know, I don't know. So anyway, it's going to be 6 books, or like 5 plus 1 book, because one of the books is my book. Not to shamelessly self-plug, but shamelessly self-plugging. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the books in alphabetical order, because I'm not putting priorities on these. I've literally gathered together 5 plus 1, so 6 books, and put them in alphabetical order so that it doesn't look like I'm picking one over the others, because I don't specifically want to say, like, this is my favourite book ever. That's not what this is for. Some of them I have in physical copy, some of them I have in ebook copy. I will be showing you the cover, reading you the synopsis as quickly as possible, and then talking about who the queer characters are and why I like the book in general. So let's get started with Chilling Effect by Valerie Valdes. I swear I talk about this book all the time. It's part of a series. I can't remember what the series title is. But the second one is called Prime Deceptions, and the third one is... I will put up on the screen what it's called because I can't remember right now, but it comes out in August and I've pre-ordered it. So yeah, the premise of Chilling Effect is the crew of La Sirena Negra deliver small cargo for even smaller profits. When her sister is kidnapped, Captain Eva Innocente must undergo a series of dangerous missions to pay the ransom, but Eva may lose her mind before she can raise the money. The ship's hold is full of psychic cats, an amorous emperor wants her dead, and her engineer is giving her a pesky case of feelings. To free her sister, Eva will risk everything, her crew, her ship, and the life she's built on the ashes of her past misdeeds. Yeah, I love it. So Eva herself is not, to my knowledge, queer. She uses she, her pronouns, and her love interest uses he, him pronouns. So, however, her best friend and her like second officer kind of person is a doctor named Pink, who is a trans woman, which if you know about transness, you get the vibes in this book, but it is officially stated in the second book, Prime Deceptions. And when that came out, my wife was like, oh yeah, and I was like, yes, did you not see that coming? And she was like, no, I did, but I didn't consciously recognise it. And I was like, oh, maybe it's because I'm trans. But yeah, I love these books. I think they're really great. I love all the characters. It's very character focused. If you like Mass Effect, the video game, or like, it's tough because it's sort of that thing of like, if you like Star Trek, but it's very specific elements of Star Trek. Like it's very heavily reliant on intercrew dynamics, like a very small crew with these very specific intercrew dynamics. It's sort of also a little bit reminiscent of Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, so if you liked that, this might be a potentially good book. As you can see, it is relatively thick, and the second one is equally as large. They are chonky books, and I know that some people have been frustrated by the amount of introspection that Eva has, so if that's something that does bother you in general, then this might not be the book for you, but I personally absolutely adore the character of Eva and I love hearing her thoughts. So even when sometimes I think, oh, you have been ruminating on this for a while, it is very in character, so it doesn't bother me. Yeah, I think it's really good, and I love that Pink exists in the universe. I'm always excited to see trans representation, shockingly enough. But there's also, in case you are, you know, not sold yet, just one trans character, Will, really. That's all it takes to get a recommendation. Yeah, no, okay, fair enough. Min, the pilot of the ship and one of the core crew, is a woman-loving woman. I don't know if she's gay, I don't know if she's bi, I don't know if she uses labels, I don't know if she's attracted to anyone other than women, but she is definitely attracted to women because she gets a love interest at one point. That also might happen in book 2. I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where, you know, when like networks do the, like TV shows do the thing where they sort of feed the little queerness in and the network has to okay it, and then eventually the network does okay it, and you look at all the stuff that came before and you go, oh yes, I can see how you built up to this. It sort of feels a little bit like that sometimes, and I can't remember what happens in book 1 and book 2 because they're so well interwoven and they so neatly lead from one to the next. But yeah, so ta-da! I hope you like it. The next book I want to talk about is called Daughter of the Sun by Effie Calvin. And the premise of this is, do I have it? Yeah. Orsina of Meladry is a paladin of the Order of the Sun, sworn to drive out corruption and chaos wherever she finds it. She has been ordered to leave her home and travel around Vasolda in search of great evil she is supposedly destined to destroy. But after 2 years of fighting monsters and demons and evil gods, she does not seem to be any closer to her goal, or ever returning home. Aelia is the goddess of caprice, the personification of poor decision-making. The Order of the Sun has classified her as a chaos goddess, meaning that her worship has been outlawed. During a run-in with Orsina, she's trapped in a mortal body, rendering her unable to leave Inthia. Aelia is found by Orsina again, but this time Orsina does not recognise her in her new body, so Aelia pretends to be a mortal woman who is fleeing an abusive family. Aelia plans to use Orsina as protection as she hunts down the magic relic that will free her from her mortal body. As Aelia and Orsina grow closer to one another, Aelia wrestles with her own desire to tell Orsina the truth about who she is, and her fear that Orsina will turn on her if she does. But the decision might not be hers after all, because their actions have not gone unnoticed by Aelia's siblings. So, in case you couldn't tell from that description, it is a sapphic romance, a woman-loving woman romance. I'm going to be calling Aelia by her fake human name, which is Eileen, because my cat's name is Ayla, and she does tend to come when I say her name, and I'm kind of in the middle of this. So, yeah, I really like this book for a number of reasons. It's technically book 2 in a series, but they're each kind of standalone novels, apart from like Daughter of the Sun. No, that's the one I'm talking about now. Queen of Effleria and Queen of Rhodia. Those are follow-ons. But the rest of it, they're all interwoven. They're all very much in the same world. There seems to be an overarching plot to follow. But I really specifically like this book, and you can read it as a standalone. The reason I really like this book is because I absolutely adore the enemies to lovers trope, and it very much falls into that. But also I really like it because Orsina is this very stoic and serious paladin, and Eileen, or Aelia, sorry, my cat has come already anyway, Aelia is the goddess of caprice. She is impulsive and thoughtless in a lot of ways, and she doesn't really understand what it means to be mortal, and she's dealing with the fact that she's now in this mortal body, and it feels very similar at times to the feeling of dysphoria, but like in a sort of I recognise you kind of way, not in like a, oh, I'm feeling dysphoria because I read about it kind of way. So yeah, I don't really have much more to say about it. I like it a lot. I have it in audiobook, and I think that the narrator for it does a really great job of capturing both Orsina and Aelia's essences, essentially, in the way she voices them. I've listened to it a fair few times when I've been in the mood to listen to a book, and yeah, I just really like it. I don't really have any logic or reasoning for this one, I guess, but I just really like it. Okay, the next one on my list, alphabetical order, remember, is Hunger Pangs, True Love Bites by Jo Demorra. You can get, there's two versions of this. There is the Flirting with Fangs edition and the Fluff with Fangs edition, and it basically depends. The flirting is explicit smut and the fluff is not explicit smut. So when the smut happens you get a different thing. I haven't read both versions. I've only read one version. I'm not going to specify. In a world of dwindling hope, love has never mattered more. Captain Nathan J. Northland has no idea what to expect when he returned home to Lorehaven, injured from the war. But it certainly wasn't to find himself posted on an island full of vampires. An island whose local vampire dandy lord causes Nathan to feel strange things he's never felt before. Particularly about fangs. When Vlad Blutstein agreed to hire Nathan as captain of Erie Guard, he hadn't been sure what to expect either, but it certainly hadn't been to fall in love with a disabled werewolf. However, Vlad has fallen, and fallen hard. That's a problem. Torn by their allegiances to family, to duty, and the age-old enmity between vampires and werewolves, the pair find themselves in a difficult situation: to love where the heart wants, or to follow where expectation demands. The situation is complicated further when the mysterious and beguiling figure known only as Lady Ursula crashes into their lives, bringing with her dark omens of death, doom and destruction in her wake. Only one thing is for certain: nothing will ever be the same. So, things I like about Hunger Pangs. It's a buy for buy for buy buy for buy for buy romance novel. But it's also very, very settled in the fantasy genre, and I really like books that have like a plot as well as a romantic subplot. Personally, that's my jam. That's what I write. Because it's my jam, I like it. I'm not such a huge fan of romance specific books if it doesn't have like another plot to go with it. But I definitely am a big fan of romantic subplots, or even romantic plots with like fantastical subplots. I'm down for it if there's fantasy or sci-fi involved. But what I really like about Hunger Pangs, True Love Bites is that it's, as I swear, I'm just going to be saying the same things over and over again. I really like how well the characters are developed. Everything they do just makes a lot of sense. Like, once you've met the characters and you've seen inside their heads, you're sort of there like, yes, this is exactly what they would do. Which I think is really cool, because sometimes you sort of get these contrived plot things that happen, and they happen in a lot of books, and I don't think that it's necessarily like I'd like tell the author off for this contrived plot thing. But there is a book that I read, and I'm not going to name and shame because we don't name and shame here, but there was a book that I read and I really liked the book, but there's one specific moment in it and it's such a clear plot contrivance because it's something that the characters would never actually have done, and as a writer I can see so many different options for what could have happened to create the same situation with all of the characters actually being in character. Because basically what happens is a very, very jovial character in this book that I'm not naming gets really angry for no apparent reason and uses his magic in an angry way, whereas it would have made much more sense for him to be really jovial and be there like, well, hey, and then just use his magic in like a fun, silly way. But that's just me. Anyway, back to Hunger Pangs, True Love Bites. So the reasons I like this book are multitudes. I really like the characters. I've said that already. But it's true. Nathan and Vlad are both very compelling. I read this book with my wife, same with Chilling Effect actually. I read the book with my wife, so she read it to me more specifically. And I just, there were so many moments where I would say something in a really snarky way and then like Vlad would say it immediately after I'd already said it, and my wife was there like, you're the dandy who's surprised, which was fun. And like Nathan is so compelling, and there's just so many little bits between those two characters where they're so hurt by the world. Like Vlad's really hurt by his family. His family is just terrible. And he's so hurt by them, and he finds so much comfort in Nathan. And like, Nathan has been hurt by the world because he's a military guy, and he was in a war, and he's now disabled, but he wasn't before. And there's just something very authentic about the way that his disabilities are written, and part of the reason for that, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying because she talks about it all the time, is because Joy Demorra herself is actually disabled and became disabled rather than having been born disabled, and it is a very different experience according to the people I've talked to. Both are equally valid, but they're both very different, and it's very, very compassionately written, I suppose is the way I want to say it. Like, having been in the fan spaces for Hunger Pangs True Love Bites, there are so many people who are disabled who have seen Nathan's journey and said, gosh, I feel seen, I feel known, I feel acknowledged in a really positive way. And Nathan's recovery arc is done so well that it, I don't know, it makes you feel, which is one of the things I really love about books. So, yeah. Nathan is bi, Vlad is bi, Ursula, their going to be love interest, is also bi. The book itself, the biggest problem I have with it, and like, I'm not trying to shame here, I'm just sharing, is that because it was written as part of a series, but without the intention of without the known intention of being split into smaller books, the book itself, when it gets to the end, it feels a little unfinished, because it's supposed to jump straight into the next book, but the next book isn't out yet. So I don't know if my opinion on that might change with whenever the next book comes out or not, but it does feel a little bit rushed and a little unfinished at the end. And I was kind of confused to begin with about Ursula, because she gets some like perspective chapters, and I was like, I don't really care about her, like, not in a mean way. She's a great character, I guess. She doesn't get a lot of page time, so I don't really have much of an opinion about her. She's quite self-serving, which I don't love, but I guess maybe that will like either change or not change and become endearing, or I don't know, maybe something will happen that'll make me like her more. Because I'm not her hugest fan. And as much as I love a good polyamorous romance, and believe me, I do, I'm just like, I'm sure she'll fit in, I'm sure they'll love her, but I don't personally yet. But maybe that will change, who knows. The next book on my list, I have to keep looking at my list, is A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. So I'm gonna preface this with the queerness of the characters is a tiny blip on the radar of this book, and I almost didn't include it, but then I changed my mind. In a war of lies, she seeks the truth. Ambassador Mahit Zismar is posted far from her mining station home, to the Empire's glorious capital. Yet when she arrives, she discovers her predecessor was murdered, but no one will admit his death wasn't accidental, and she might be next. Mahit must navigate the capital's deadly halls of power while hunting the killer. She must also somehow stop the Empire from annexing her fiercely independent colony. As she sinks deeper into the seductive yet unfamiliar culture, Mahit engages in intrigues of her own. For she is hiding an extraordinary technological secret, one which might destroy her station and its way of life. Or it might save them all from annihilation. So again, I listened to this in audiobook, and if you have any kind of reading related issues like dyslexia or ADHD, or you're partially sighted or anything, I would highly recommend getting the audiobook, because not only is the audio narrator, in my humble opinion, excellent, but the layout of this book is confusing as fuck. So, like, I know that doesn't sound like a selling point, and you know, but basically all of the people from the actual Empire itself, they are given dual names, so a number and a natural thing. So like 3 Seagrass, for example, is a very prominent character, or 19 ads is another very prominent character. And when I was listening to it, in my head, I was hearing it as like the number 3 and then dash and then seagrass. It is not that. All of the numbers are written out in full words, and that is very hard for me personally to read. There are also internal versus external conversations. I'm not going to say too much about those, but they are quotation marked differently. So if that's going to be a problem for you, fair warning. The queer characters in this are Mahit herself is a woman-loving woman, possibly bi, possibly gay. Again, it's not clarified, it's not specified, but she does have a romantic moment with a woman. So obviously that woman is also a woman-loving woman, because that's kind of how these things work. And I get vibes. I can't remember if... What is his name? Oh my god. But I get vibes. I can't remember his name, but I get vibes from Three Seagrass's friend as well, of queerness vibes. I kind of get queerness vibes from the vast majority of people in this book. I feel like this is one of those everyone's bisexual future novels. Speaking of everyone is bisexual, I feel like I haven't sold this actually. It's very like court political intrigue and murder mystery all wrapped into one, which I like. It is very devastating at the end, however, so if you're not into devastation, you might not want it. Speaking of everybody's bi, my book, Mary Ellen Breaking the Curse, which I have just put in alphabetical order, there is more book after this. My book, Mary Ellen Breaking the Curse, the premise for this book is how much would you risk for your dreams? Mary wants to be a guardian. There's just a few things standing in her way. Her gender, her secret heritage, her penchant for questioning authority. Her repeated petitions turned arguments with the Guardian Commander have got Mary exactly nowhere, and as her second year of study at the Five Towers University nears its end, Mary is starting to worry she won't have a job after graduation, or at least not one beyond her current gig as a bartender. When a Guardian Colonel comes to Mary for help, the logical thing to do is agree. After all, Colonel's only one step down from Commander. But when that help includes searching the places that will put Mary's security most at risk, she has to turn down the opportunity of a lifetime, until the Colonel sweetens the deal. So in Mary Ellen Breaking the Curse, everybody is bi apart from one character who is specifically stated to be straight. It's a standard like bisexual universe, but that's not really relevant to the plot, so it doesn't really make it in that much. Mary is bi, but it doesn't really come out. Her love interest is a man, so people don't see that she's bi, which is one of those quintessentially bi experiences. I think it's kind of hilarious though, because people talk about Calic like he's straight. He literally comes out as bi in the novel. But alright. We also have, in case you're interested, Mary's roommate is in a relationship. Mary's roommate is a man who is in a relationship with a man. And we also have my mum's favourite character, Leorelian Fawkes, who is non-binary and uses she/them/their pronouns, for which, because none of my parental figures in my life, so my mum and my in-laws, I haven't asked my dad and my stepmom, but pretty sure they would also have trouble with it, I had to put in an explanation of how to use she/them/their pronouns. Because everybody who got a copy of it, apart from like a very select few, admitted to being confused and thinking Leor and C were two different people, which is fine, but also inaccurate. So yeah, I'm not gonna go into why I like this book, but it is really funny. If you're into funny books, this is a good one. Like, I know, again, I sound a bit up my own butt if I say I laugh out loud all the time when reading this. And also when reading the second one, when I'm trying to edit it. But alright, other people also laugh. Like people when they've been reading it, when I've been around, like my wife and my in-laws and my mum also. And I know, again, these people know me, so you maybe want to take this, like maybe you're thinking, oh, I'm going to take this with a grain of salt, these people like you. But like in the grand scheme of things, they're sitting there reading this book. Every time that I've been there, like, look, I've got a book, everybody just snatches it out of my hands. I don't know if this is like a normal thing or if this is like a my family thing, but they snatch it out of my hands, they start reading it, and like within pages, these people are going, ha ha ha, which is glorious and makes me feel really good. But yeah, most of the people I've seen read this laugh at some point, during the novel. So if you're into funny books, this is a funny book. If you want to read the first chapter for free, it's available over on nopoodles.wordpress.com, and if you want to read the first 3 chapters for free, they're available via my mailing list in your welcome email. You have no obligation to stick around if you just want to read the first 3 chapters. It's a PDF in case you're interested, and all of the links for those things are in the description box right next to the like and subscribe buttons if you do feel like sticking around. And we get on to our final book of this surprisingly long video. This is How You Lose the Time War by, oh shoot, what are these people's names? Amal, El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. Among the ashes of a dying world, an agent of the commandant finds a letter. It reads, "Burn before reading." Red and Blue, 2 rival agents hell-bent on securing the best possible futures for their warring factions, strike up an unlikely correspondence. But what started as a taunt, a battlefield boast, grows into something more, something epic and romantic, something that can change the past and the future. The discovery of their bond will mean their deaths. There's still a war going on, and someone has to win that war. That's how wars work, right? So, fair warning, this has a relatively tragic feeling ending. I read this in one sitting. It's a very short book. I absolutely adored it. I could not put it down. Like, I know that's so, obviously I read it in one sitting, but like, it's not just, it's a short book, so it's easy to read in one sitting. I read it in one sitting because even though I got interrupted halfway through to be there, by my wife being there like, shall we go to bed? I literally stayed up until I had finished this book. I could not put it down. I really like the layout in this book because it starts, each sort of section has the hang on, is it thingy first and then letter? Yes. It has the person, so it swaps between the 2 perspectives, red and blue. And it has the person question finding the letter from the other, and then transitions to the next person finding the reply letter, and it's just beautiful. I just really love it. I love the way that the relationship between red and blue develops over the course of the novel, and honestly, I didn't think it was queer when I read it. Like, no, that's not what I mean. I mean, like, I didn't realise until quite a way in that it was queer, which is wild, because, like, they're not trying to hide it. When red wins, she stands alone, says the first line of the book. And then in the next section, which is blue, when blue wins, which is always, she moves on to the next thing. And it's like, they're both she's, and I didn't pick up on it until about halfway through. Which is fine. I mean, I feel really stupid, but it's fine. But yeah, it's just really beautiful. And like, as the novel progresses, as the story progresses, you get to understand each of the factions and what they stand for and what their goal is and how they function. And like, you get to see how that has impacted both red and blue over the course of their war, and over the course of them falling in love, how they deteriorate from what they were intended to be. And it's also a really good one to reread, because once you find out what the twist at the end is, you're like, I gotta go back and start over, which I only didn't do because it was like 11 o'clock at night and I was like, I'm gonna have to get up in the morning. But yeah, so I keep pestering my wife. She hasn't got around to reading it yet, but I keep pestering my wife that she needs to read this, because it's such a quick read as well. Like, it's so quick. It's less than 200 pages and it's it's really well spaced. Like, I know that sort of, look at how well spaced that is. Oh, it's good. Like, not to, again, toot my own horn or anything, but I do think that it's probably better spaced than Mary Ellen Breaking the Curse, even though I very intentionally tried to space that out really nicely as well. versus like, again, just to shit on Memory Called Empire some more. No, not in a mean way, just it's just very, very small print, very, very close together, which is an issue for me to read as a dyslexic person. And I tried to make sure that Mary Arlan Breaking the Curse wasn't that, which is why the letters are so large in Mary Arlan Breaking the Curse. Like, there's not a lot of space between the lines necessarily, but I did pick quite a big font, and one that has very specific benefits that I personally found really helpful. Anyway, again, I'm not actually, at no point am I trying to shame any novels here in this list for any of the things that I've pulled up as, I don't want to say issues even, as like nitpicky things. I just want people to be informed. Like, I absolutely love A Memory Called Empire, but I would not have if I had read it instead of listening to it. Like, if I had read it in the traditional sense instead of listening to it. I haven't got around to the second book yet because it's a lot. Like, this, I'm just gonna run through the list dead quick and give you like the vibes of where you should be if you want to read it. So, Chilling Effect, you can be anywhere, you can be anytime. It's a good book to pick up and put down. It's a really great book for if you are trying to do bite-sized chunks or you really want to do chapters. It's also great to just read from start to finish. It is very well paced. It's exceedingly well paced. It's a good all-arounder, which is why it's one of my favourite books now, because it is just so good for just picking up and putting down, but also really good for reading all the way through. It's great. If you are in the mood for a fun space romp, or even like slightly heavier topics, like, it's good for pretty much any mood that you're in, except possibly, no, I literally can't think of an exception. I think this is a great book for any mood and any time. Daughter of the Sun is excellent in chapters. I really enjoyed taking my time between the chapters. Like, I'd listen to a chapter and then put it down for a while and then pick it back up again, and it was really nice because you trade off between the characters' perspectives from chapter to chapter, so it sort of feels like you can take your time with it. Except sometimes when it gets to a very dramatic moment, and when you get towards the end, you're gonna want to be able to like focus and read most of the ending in one fell swoop. Or potentially, because there is some devastation, you maybe want to take more time with it. I don't know. So yeah, it's a really great one for taking your time with. If we go to Hunger Pangs, True Love Bites, I would highly recommend being in a house with tissues. No, if you have any kind of neurodiversity or disability or pain condition or anything like that, there is a very high possibility that you are going to cry when you read that book. Not because it's sad, just because, like, there's a moment in it where Nathan, who is in pain all the time, goes to a doctor, and the doctor says, "Damn, I believe you. Let's see if we can make that a little bit better, shall we?" And like, just the idea of being believed by a doctor immediately is the most fantastical element of the book, and there's vampires and werewolves in it. It's a chunky one though. Like, Hunger Pangs, True Love Bites, it is chunky, and it's quite fast paced for a chunky book, so I dedicate some time to that. Memory Called Empire, I highly recommend reading in small chunks. Like, this is a heavy book. I would definitely wait until you are in a very, very rested place to begin this book. It is excellent, don't get me wrong. I love this book. It wouldn't be on this list if I didn't really love it. Wouldn't have a physical copy if I didn't really love it. But it is a lot. It is a heavy book. There is a lot of political intrigue, there's a lot of murder mystery things, there's a lot of technical language, and while I love all of those things, if that's not your jam, that's fine. And yeah, I'd highly recommend having a fair chunk of time set aside for this. This is also quite a chunky book, so like, you're gonna need time. Mary Ellen Breaking the Curse, it's quite a short one. This is not a chunky book. It's novel length, but it's short. It's longer than This Is How You Lose a Time War, but it's not a big one. It would probably take you, if you were going to read this out loud, if this was going to be an audiobook, which I'd love, but I do not have the money for, if this was going to be an audiobook, it would probably take about 8 hours. Bearing in mind that audiobooks are always slower than actual reading, unless you're, you know, me and dyslexic and read at the half the speed of the average person. This book should take you between 5 and 10 hours to read, if you were to just calculate up all of the hours. It's funny and simple. You can be in a light-hearted mood and want a funny book. You can be in a kind of a bad mood and want a pick-me-up book. It's good for that. And my wife says it will warp your sense of time, so I guess bear that in mind. But I do think it's a book I think it would be a good comfort book. And I know that's coming from me, so take that however you will, coming from the person who read it, but I do think it would be a good comfort book, personally. It does have a couple of heavy topics in there. Like I have a content warning about how there's references to abuse and there's graphic depictions of violence because it's got action adventure stuff in it, but you know, I think it's a good book for when you're in any kind of mood, but particularly if you are looking for a pick-me-up. Speaking of pick-me-ups, this is a great book for if you need a pick-me-up. These books are two sides of the same coin. Memory Called Empire and This Is How You Lose a Time War are two sides of the same coin. There is a war going on. There is an empire, two empires, in this war, and there's political intrigue and people on their own sides. In A Memory Called Empire, it's very much that Mahit is the ambassador for the Cell Station and she has to be on the side of the Cell Station, even though technically the Cell Station is part of the Empire. Where in This Is How You Lose the Time War, they're literally on opposite sides of the Time War. But the thing about this one is that, again, like I already said, you can finish this in a sitting. It's short, it's less than 200 pages. It's the fast and light-hearted version of A Memory Called Empire. It's not as heavy, it doesn't have as much political intrigue, but it is still political intrigue-y. Why do I like so many sci-fi books with political intrigue? Is that something to investigate? But anyway, this is a really great pick-me-up book. It's a truly wonderful pick-me-up book. I literally picked it up because I was in a really bad mood. And I felt a lot better at the end, so that's my endorsement. I picked this up when I was in a bad mood and I felt better by the end. So there you go. Those are my top 6 or 5+1 books with... Yeah, so there you go. Those are my top 6/5+1. That sounds like a mathematical equation. Books with LGBT characters in them, what they're about, who the LGBT characters are, and why I like them specifically. Or as specifically as I can manage when I haven't sat down and scripted this out and I'm just kind of talking off my own head. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it and or found it helpful. If this is a great way to get recommended queer books, please feel free to recommend your own queer books in the comments. By your own, I legitimately mean if you've written a queer book, please tell me, and if you have queer books that you like, or books with queer characters more specifically, please tell me that also. Tell me what the book is, who it's by, why you like it, and who the queer characters are. I need all 4 of those things, because recommendations don't really mean anything if you don't give me a reason why you're recommending them. And if you'd like to find out more about Mary Ellen Breaking the Curse, and also where to buy it, or read any of my free short stories, all of the links for where to find me and the book are in the description box below, along with a link to my Ko-fi account if you feel like supporting the channel and enabling me to buy more books to talk about. That's the description box right next to the like and subscribe buttons if you actually definitely feel like sticking around now. Bye.